Hello, everyone. We are live. We are going to wait just a couple minutes for everybody to get in here. I know people probably coming back and forth from meetings and stuff, so we'll go ahead and wait a few minutes for everybody to hop in. But yeah, how's your morning going, Mark and Micah?
It's nice and early here. Still working on the coffee. It's 7 a.m., so it's right around starting time, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited.
It's 10 a.m. here, so I'm in my sweet spot. I've already this is the second cup drive that I'm going for right now. So I'm good to go. Yeah, that's the nice thing about being on East Coast is I've got like a good mix of like it's super early for West Coast, but I also have good crossover with Europe and India.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I'm in Central, so I'm like in between both of you. Like 9 o'clock is like Mark's like probably jealous of that, but the 9 is still kind of early for me. I'm not like a big morning person, and so I'm like the coffee's kicking in. I'm on my first coffee, so but yeah, the energy's here. I can feel it. It's coming. Hello, Aditi. I see some in the chat here. Yeah, I've got some folks streaming in, but yeah. Very excited for today. I have so much to learn about automation anywhere. Like as we're working on this cert, I was like, this is all still a little bit Greek to me, but like it's very cool what it can do. And I was like, I need to actually learn this. So I'm super excited to both moderate and learn today and kind of see how all of this works together and how Automation Anywhere can supercharge PixieBrix and vice versa. And then I'm super excited for Imagine next week, where I'll get to learn even more about Automation Anywhere. So
that's right. Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting event. I was just talking to you guys right before this that we'll be doing bot games live in person, and it's going to be co-presented by Google this year. So I'm super excited about that. And we've been working on testing the use cases and stuff like that, which is going to be a ton of fun.
Absolutely. Yes. Super excited.
How many bot games use cases are there this year?
So we're doing 2 this year. I think you were at Imagine last year.
Yeah.
I think we overwhelmed some people with the difficulty of some of the challenges and the number. We showed up with 4 challenges and they were really tough. So we did a mix this year. We've got one that's pretty easy and one that's a little bit tougher.
Perfect.
But going with the generative AI theme. So we're going to have some service accounts set up so that you can use Google Vertex AI to be able to solve some of these challenges. And it's going to be really fun to see people try that out and get hands-on. And yeah, it's a cool use cases.
That's always nice when the environment's set up for you and you can just build.
Everything should be set. You don't have to go and like sign up for GCP and set up a project and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it. The team has put in a ton of effort to make sure these are tested, make sure everything's working, get the instructions clarified. So yeah, we're good. Super excited for it.
That's awesome. I'm excited to learn. We'll see. I don't know how confident I'll feel in my abilities, but hopefully I'll get there and be like, oh yeah, I've got all of this. I can handle this.
Well, we've got a leaderboard, so you can put yourself to the test to see where you really stack against other developers, which is something we have not done very much previously. But this will be a real-time leaderboard. So as you complete your challenge, you'll have your time and your accuracy, and you'll show up on the leaderboard. And so we're going to be giving out prizes. So that's going to be like the competitive side of people.
I was going to say, you just said leaderboard and that unlocked the competitive side of me. This has now gone from like, I should learn Automation Anywhere to like, I will be studying now all weekend to get ahead of the curve, to walk in ready to go. Like, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Prepped and ready. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. I think people will get really competitive about that, but it'll be a cool way for people to be able to try out some different things, try out different approaches, see what that does for their speed and their place on the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I always love a good gamification. I know 2 controversial things that everybody's like, nobody wants like swag and gamification in apps. And I'm like, I do. I want swag and I want gamification. So yeah.
Yeah, all the things.
All the things. Exactly. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick this off. I just saw that Priyanshu's got a question about the certification. Is this the same certification we conducted earlier? Which is a great kickoff to what are we all doing here? So this is we are launching a new chapter in our PixieBrix and AI certification, which I'll talk more about in a second. But we've got a whole course that's all about how to use PixieBrix and AI and create all sorts of custom browser mods. And we're adding a new chapter about integrating that with Automation Anywhere. So this is an added module like on top of that. And we're going to go through a live build with Mark, showing the kind of stuff we're going through in the course and talking through with Micah some other ways that you can explore using generative AI and Automation Anywhere with PixieBrix. So without further ado, let's all introduce ourselves. I'm Brittany Joyner. I am head of developer relations at PixieBrix, and I am here moderating and learning from these great experts here. And yeah, I'll pass over to Mark.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Britt. Glad to be here. I'm the head of enterprise enablement and some of the certification programs, and so really excited to show you this RPA module add-on, because in general, we're seeing a lot of the use cases coming out of customers that end up saying, we've already got a lot of RPA bots, we've got ARI set up. How can we integrate this into some of the new technologies? And so I think this is a great jumping off point for anyone wanting to get into that.
Awesome. Yeah. And Micah, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm here representing Automation Anywhere, and I lead our developer evangelism efforts and also some of our community and learning efforts. And so super excited to be here. We've done lots of tutorials on using Copilot and integrating these two capabilities together. And I'm excited that you guys are doing some of this stuff to show from the other perspective, focus on the Copilot extension, PixieBrix part of it, and then looking otherwise at the Automation Anywhere side. So super excited to go through this. Excited to do some demos and some live build stuff.
Yes, awesome. And may all of the demo gods be in all of our favor today.
Cowboy style, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do it live.
Yeah.
So real quick, I just want to give context for anybody who's kind of new to this. Priyanshu already kind of mentioned the certification that we were talking about earlier, and we have launched a PixieBrix and AI certification. And so it's going to go through some of the common building blocks you'll use to build tools with PixieBrix and how to layer ChatGPT and AI on top of that. And so it's a fairly easy course to go through. Should take 1 to 2 hours. You can watch a walkthrough that we did earlier, that kind of a live stream where we went through each section and went through the questions and how to do all of it and did the builds. And you can kind of get a preview of the content here if you're like, what all am I going to be learning and building in here? So yeah, feel free. I will put a link to this in the chat. Make sure everybody sees that there. But yeah, feel free to check that out if you have not already. And we are releasing, a new chapter in this that's all about Automation Anywhere. And so with that, I will go ahead and pass over to Mark. Mark, are you ready to talk about this?
Yeah, I think we're ready.
All righty, let's bring your screen up here. Perfect. All right, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Britt. And so, as mentioned, I think Britt's going to have covered most of this, but you'll notice that these are the chapters actually in the AI certification. And so continually we'll be building on this and adding on modules, which you can optionally choose what you want to learn about. And so this one could be AI and automation. There could be other modules about specific PixieBrix builds and templates and things like that. But here's where in general you'll find it after the exam, is where we'll stack the add-on modules. And so we've only got a few lessons here to make it nice and short and digestible. But what we're going to do today is focus on a PixieBrix build, which handles customer support tickets. And so this is a very common use case. We have really pulled out some of the ideas from the different use cases we're seeing in the field and try to simplify a build which you can do in a short amount of time to get your feet Gen AI and RPA here. And so the idea of this challenge is that we're going to have a few sample emails. And so as we walk through these, you can see this one might be a customer asking to delete their account. This one might be a customer asking to update their email. And this one might be asking for something that we actually can't handle yet in a automated fashion. And so what we want to do is be able to handle all three of these as an agent, leveraging what RPA bots and automations we already have. And
Mark,
so
one question real quick, if we can help to ground some of this conversation.
sure.
When we think about PixieBrix versus Automation Anywhere and Copilot, I want to kind of clarify what people have licensing for, what you have access to if you're an Automation Anywhere customer.
Yeah, great question. That does come up a lot. And so happy to clear it up here. If you're an Automation Anywhere customer and you've got your RE licenses,
RE/Copilot, right? So RE's the old name, Copilot's the new name. Just want to clarify.
Yeah, perfect. The RE/Copilot licenses, you can go ahead and install PixieBrix today, and use cases covering any time you use the Copilot. So in your use case, anytime you call out to the Automation Anywhere systems via API. And so we'll actually show that in the demo today. And then anytime you're actually modifying an Automation Anywhere page, whether that's a Copilot form or other Automation Anywhere domain pages, all of that's going to be automatically included in that Copilot license. And so that's a great way, if you've got your Copilot licenses, to get the extension, get started, and really leverage some of the power of those. Yeah, great question, Mike. I know that comes up a lot, and happy to take more questions if you've got them. You can put them in the chat. Anyone who's got specific licensing questions. And so, yeah, in that context, we've got a use case here, which at a high level, we're going to have the user select an email or one of the sample emails here, run that through a large language model like ChatGPT, where we do two things. We're going to categorize the ticket into one of the many actions that we know we can handle, and we're going to extract data from that email, knowing that if we need to update an account, we need very specific items of data, whether that's the account ID, whether that's the new email, and so stuff like that. And then we're going to actually send that off to an RPA bot and give the user some feedback on where we are in the process, if we recognize the action, if we've successfully updated that with the RPA bot. And this should be something that you can build relatively quickly. And so I'm happy to jump in. Hey, Brian. Yeah, good to see you. I think, let's see, my experience with the cert and completion of it was very positive. That's great to hear.
Yeah. I'm trying to open up LinkedIn because I realized I can't respond via to LinkedIn from StreamYard here. So I'm trying to find on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's awesome, Brian. We're like super glad to hear that.
Yeah, and hopefully this is something that, Brian, you can also open up and get going on, because I've actually just published this module as well. So anyone who wants to follow along with the build definitely can, starting now. And so when we start any PixieBrix build, if you've made it through the certification this far, hopefully you'll know to go to the inspect. So right click on a Windows or two-finger click on a Mac, and go ahead and click inspect, and you can open up the Chrome developer tools, and you'll see PixieBrix as one of these tabs here. And so this is going to be where we do the authorship experience on whatever you're trying to build. And so
are you a docked guy, or are you a separate window guy?
I'm docked because I think it's a little easier when you're selecting elements and things like that. But also for the webinar, I haven't fully mastered the two screen sharing and things like that. So in general, you can definitely remove it, and I've seen people develop that a lot faster.
I like, depending on what I'm working on, I go kind of both ways. Depending on what I'm working on, I like having it over to the side and on its own sort of thing. But yeah, sometimes it just gets finicky when I'm trying to like select elements, and like if I'm working with something like that. But if it's more of like, okay, I just need one trigger and then I'm doing a bunch of things, like I'm much more likely to pull it from the dock.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If you're building one kind of starter brick down the line, it becomes a little easier to see it in context. But if you've got, obviously we've built very complicated mods, and then you really need that screen real estate sometimes.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm a floating window guy, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, we'll see if we make it through this sample build here in the dock formation. Otherwise, I can I can swap over live. And so what we're going to do from here is actually start by going to the upper left corner. You've got an add button, and you'll see some of the starting points for PixieBrix. And so these are your starter bricks. You've got the button, context menu, quick bar action. Hopefully we're familiar with a few of these, but for this use case, we're actually going to start with a context menu. And I'll just add this so you can see what it is. When you now right click or do that 2-finger click on a Mac, you've now added a context menu item to the tray. And so this is what we're going to use to drive the experience for the user. And so how we imagine this working in our sample is that you can highlight any of the emails, go ahead and select and run PixieBrix in this context. And so you can see I've got plenty of other mods I'm working on here, but you can see I've got this context menu item here. So let's start by saying this is maybe analyze ticket as an action. And you can see that first one is going to save directly to what we call the starter brick. And the second one actually saves to what we call the label for the context menu item. So now we have an analyze ticket action. And from here, we're going to go ahead and configure brick by brick in this middle panel here, how each of these bricks should work. And so for the context menu, you've got a couple of different options. You can actually select where it appears. And so in our case, we only want this to appear if they've highlighted, if the user has highlighted some text. And so we'll go ahead and say selection. So now if I'm using the context menu, I don't have that option. But now if I've highlighted some text, I get that option back. And so this is one of the ways, and we'll work our way down through how you can actually limit and really narrowly attack a specific use case. And so you can see here, this is actually specific to our certification site. You could actually go ahead and say, I want this to run on all URLs. And that is also a valid way to develop this. And then we're going to go ahead and actually disable this message for now, since we're going to be displaying notifications to the user in this mod build. So now we're ready to actually go ahead and kick this off and get some information going to ChatGPT. We have a full set of bricks that connect out to some of the large language models. In this case, if we search ChatGPT, you can see we've got PaLM as well set up here. And you can actually go ahead and integrate with any of the endpoints using our HTTP brick. So don't feel limited by anything we've wrapped up. Feel free to write your own request or request a specific model that we can wrap up bricks for you. And so for this one, we're going to use ChatGPT and create a chat response.
Is there a brick SDK?
So bricks are built in the workshop. And so these are going to be YAML files, which we do have some documentation on. And that's how you actually are going to, anyone can write a brick to wrap up some of this functionality. And it's really going to be wrapping up some of the actions you've already got. So if I make a ChatGPT request and maybe I want to select a specific response out of that, I could wrap that up as one brick and only expose some of the inputs to make it maybe a simpler brick to work with.
Yeah, I like that.
And maybe someone can link to the brick definitions doc in the chat as well.
Yes, I'll go grab those.
And so with the create ChatGPT response brick, in general, you'll have an integration selected or a configuration here. I've got a couple set up, so I'll actually go ahead and select mine. But PixieBrix does have a built-in integration, which you can use for development and testing. And then we'll go ahead and add some messages. And in general, how this brick works is we'll pass in a context of messages and it will reply with an assistant message. And so what does that actually mean? We've wrapped up the 3 types of messages commonly used in this API call to ChatGPT. So a system message is going to be the set of instructions basically that you want to run. The user message is going to be what data or what information you want to run those system messages on in general. And then the assistant is going to be the assistant reply. And so for system, we can go ahead and write a prompt real quick about telling the AI, you are a customer support ticket handler. Please categorize the ticket and extract the relevant information. And then we'll actually
we're just posting the prompt just like we would if we like had ChatGPT open in a browser. Like we're literally just saying exactly what we would say to it.
Yeah, exactly here. And so we actually want ChatGPT to do a couple things. And so this is where we employ the strategy of asking it to respond in JSON as well. And so this is a great trick if you haven't picked this one up yet. So we can say respond in the following JSON format. And we'll provide an object of things that we want ChatGPT to extract. So maybe it's the action that the ticket wants us to perform. And so this could be update email. This could be delete account, or maybe we say none in case of defaulting to we don't have one of these actions. And so for the sake of the certification, we've only wrapped up 2 RPA actions that can be completed, but you can imagine this is something that can be dynamic, loaded in from a set of RPA bots that you want to actually be able to call. And so this is something that is, once you build this, you can really expand on what capabilities this has. And so along with the action, we're going to go ahead and extract 2 more pieces of information. So we've got an ID. And so this ID is going to be the account ID in general of that's been mentioned in the support ticket that we want to look up for. And so let's say account ID mentioned in support ticket, and then we'll also give it a default to none if not found. And that's just going to give ChatGPT a little bit of a easier time defining what happens when you don't find some of the information.
Yeah. Does this help prevent it making something up instead?
Yeah, in general, we want it to be very specific down to if you find something, great. If not, don't try to generate some information. Let's return none as a completely acceptable answer. And so we'll do the same thing for email here as well, because support ticket default to none. And so one quick thing I'll say about this ChatGPT prompt we've written here. Obviously, we've pulled out something like email, which the update email action will want to use, but maybe the delete account won't need because we already have an account ID. This is a very flat structure just for the sake of demo, so we can quickly extract information. You can definitely give in a map of informations such as, hey, here are the relevant actions and the information they need. And so if you categorize something as update email, here are the arguments that you need to respond with. But for the sake of simplicity and on this live build, we can give some of this information and default to none if we don't find it. And so that's going to be good for our system prompt. We can go ahead and jump in, and what we're going to do is pass in the user message now. And so this is simply going to be whatever has been passed through to PixieBrix, PixieBrix's context menu. Right? And so if I run this, I'll actually see the information that's highlighted comes through as a variable in our starter brick. And so if you scroll down, you'll see we've got a selection text, and that's going to be the information we've actually highlighted here as the sample email. And so working with PixieBrix, you can copy the path to that variable and simply dump that into the ChatGPT response here. And so just like that, I think we're good to go and test this out. I might rename this to GPT output to have a really clean variable name, but general will be good to go here. And so all of the PixieBrix inputs and outputs for each step are going to be traceable if you've got the page editor open. And so in the render tab, you've got the inputs. And so you can see the messages, the system message I passed through, as well as you can see the variable was evaluated correctly to the inputted text message that we have from the sample email. And then the output is, you can see here, we've got a delete account, we've got the ID, and we've got none here. And so that's going to be the starting point of what we do for how we handle this, whether we can send this off to an RPA bot or whether we need to tell the user, hey, we actually don't recognize this information. And so let's go ahead and we'll parse the JSON here. Since what's happened here is ChatGPT has actually returned a string representing JSON. So we're going to go ahead and grab that and parse it into our parse JSON brick. And maybe I'll say GPT parsed. And if we run this again, this should get us the information needed. And you can see here, we've now got action. It's actually returned an array, so I might have to specify to return one action. But we've got the ID successfully, 39624, and we've recognized that there's no email here. So what I'll do is I'll tweak the prompt slightly to ask it to return just one of these items. And so if we run this again, let's see if it understood that. Great. And so now you can see I've got just delete account here. And so when we go through the parse JSON brick, we've got the intention, we've got the information needed. Now we're ready to go ahead and send this off to a bot if we have recognized the action. And so this is a condition. So we're going to use the if else statement here. And we're going to go ahead and say, we only want the true case to run if we've recognized a ChatGPT action that we can handle. And so this could say true if this action here, delete account, will copy the variable to that, the path to that variable is in one of the actions that we can actually handle. So this is, again, update email or delete account.
By the way, just a quick note, Mark. We're shifting away from saying RPA and leaning more into saying automation instead, just to kind of paint a broader picture and not kind of put things in that sort of siloed box. So just calling that out.
Yeah, definitely. And in this case, we're going to be deploying a bot, but there are many bricks that actually link out to the Copilot that actually can render the pilot widgets, and so. Yes, there are definitely a lot of integrations to Automation Anywhere's platform. In this case, we'll use a bot, but in general, there are a lot of cases that do send off ARI requests and are able to show tasks and things like that. And so jumping back in here, we've got the action. And so what this is actually going to do is two things for us. This is going to allow us to go down a branch if we recognized one of the actions from ChatGPT, but it's also going to parse out any hallucinations. And so if ChatGPT doesn't return something we're expecting, maybe it doesn't return none, it returns renew subscription, we're going to know that, hey, these are the two or however many things that we know how to handle with RPA. And so those are the ones we can ship off to the automation platform and have it deploy a bot. And so now we're going to simply confirm the condition works before deploying the unattended bot here. So this case will be if we recognize the action, and then this case will be we don't recognize the action. Recognized. We'll actually use those as the messages as well. I'll make this a warning since this is actually something we can't handle. This is something we can handle. So this is recognize action. And I'll go ahead and throw in the action as well, just so we know as a user, if I don't have the page editor open, we know what ChatGPT has returned. So I'll save this and I'll run this on a few of these emails just to confirm that this works, and we should be good to go. So if I analyze this ticket, we should be expecting a delete account, which is great. Now, if we come down here, we've got the account. And you can see we've got update email there. And just to confirm that we've pulled out some of the correct information, we can see we've pulled out the ID, the new email to update the email to. And then finally, we'll test our last case, which is simply if we don't have something that we can handle. In this case, it's going to be purchasing an annual membership. we get not recognized. And so now we've set up the structure where we can categorize a ticket and we can understand what we handle and what we don't with automation. And so here is when we can connect to Automation Anywhere. And this is going to be one of our final steps here in handling the ticket. So now that we've understood what the ticket is, we've understood the context, let's go ahead and get that handled with Automation Anywhere. And so I've added the Run Automation Anywhere brick, but in general, there are a few bricks that we've already wrapped up. And so this could be listing the tasks. We may have to update these to Copilot, but these are RE tasks and requests. And then we've also got the RE widget. So basically the Copilot widget, which you can show in the sidebar. And we may do that in another session. But for this one, we're going to run one of the bots that we have. And so I'll actually, that's going to be the wrong control room. Sorry, I've got so many of these control rooms set up.
Yeah, Mark, while you're doing this, I think one of the things that I was confused with at first when starting to set some of this stuff up is you have this concept of like a private connection versus I'm trying to make sure I get this language right. There's like a private connection versus a public configuration.
Yeah, great call out there. And so there's a few different types of integrations that we use. And so this will be simplified a little further in the future, but in general, there are two. And so one's going to be private, which means it's local to your extension. This is something that you've configured for your extension and you haven't actually shared with a team. And then there's a higher level, which is the public ones, which are configured at the team level. And so a team could say, here's our connection to Automation Anywhere as a service account. Here's our connection to Airtable or another service like that, where not everyone might need to have their own specific connection to that service. But in general, that's going to be the public versus private. And that comes along with another detail, which is if you're running public API keys, there's a distinction between actually running it through the PixieBrix server, so basically running it through our API gateway, or running it directly from the browser. And so you can set up any combination of these. It could be public or private. You can run it through the server or not, but those are basically the 2 points that you're going to want to configure. And in general, for some of these use cases, you can configure them at a high level is what we see the teams do, and actually configure them to run as a push down credential. So that means it's not running through PixieBrix servers. You're making a direct call from your browser, and that's going to ensure a lot of the compliance things that we're trying to do at PixieBrix.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to publish that, right? That way people don't have to worry about creating their own individual private connections.
Exactly. And so if you're a team admin, you might say, hey, I've got a couple of developers who know how to make the connection, so I'll let them make specific connections to OpenAI, for example. Maybe they want to tweak the models and things like that, but you may have a lot of business users who simply want to just have the mod run when they activate it. And so that's a great place to use a team credential and do tracking that way. And yeah, I think there's also some documentation on the integration stuff. So if we want to put that in the chat, we could do that as well. And so as we go down the Automation Anywhere configuration, we've got the workspace. So this will be, I've got a public bot. I've got a list of bots here. I think this is because there's a lot of bots in my control room. I'll actually go ahead and just search for the one I know is there. So the customer support handler. You can check if it's attended or not. This is going to look like your bot run process from Automation Anywhere. You'll select your bot runner, your device pool, and then you'll notice instantly the input arguments of the bot are loaded in as parameters here. And so all we have to do is map what ChatGPT has extracted into what the bot expects. And so we've linked a export of the bot in the add-on module. And so it expects a string for the action, the account ID, and the email. And what we do is we already have the action ID and email. These say none because we ran this on an email, which we didn't recognize the action for. But if we run this on an email, which we do recognize the action for, and the if statement handles that, we should be okay passing all of these variables in, and we can handle that from the bot side as well to do some validation. And so just like that, we've got a ChatGPT categorization. We've got a decision whether we can handle this with a bot or not. And then we've got the deploy bot. So there's one more setting that we're going to turn on. This is for enterprise control rooms. And so if you're working off a community control room, you may not have this feature work correctly or access to this feature. This is basically going to wait for the bot to return. And so we can actually check the output of the bot and confirm that if it returns successfully, we can maybe show a message to the user saying, hey, we've confirmed that the bot returned successfully and we've handled the ticket. So I might say handled ticket and just make this a success message in our use case. So I'll go ahead and save this. I've got to turn on the VM real quick. So I'll flip over here. And so I think that should be good now. And we'll go ahead and give this a whirl. So we'll start maybe with none, since that is going to be straightforward enough. Analyze ticket. So great, we've got no recognize action. We've got update email. And so if we analyze the ticket here, we'll see that in the page editor, we've got through and we're deploying a bot here. And we've parsed the information correctly. And so I'll flip over to the VM, and hopefully in a minute here, we'll see the deployment go through. Here it is. And so this is obviously the RPA bot working off a Google spreadsheet, or Excel spreadsheet. This could be any application or desktop app or legacy app that you want the RPA bot to handle. But what we've got there is a success, and you can see at the top, we've notified the user that we've handled the ticket. What it's done is it's gone to this row and updated the email to this. And just to confirm that that does work, I'll show you the deleting account, and you'll be able to see the row deleted. And we'll run delete account. You can see we've notified the user that this is the correct action. And then we'll flip over to the VM and hopefully see that row get deleted from our customer database. And so it's going to happen quick, but you can see that's the row that we had with our updated email, and that got deleted. And then we've got a success notification on the PixieBrix side. And so that's going to be the build that you need for this add-on module. There are a lot of different things that you can do to really enhance this build. You can pull out more actions. You can connect it to more of your bots that you've already got working for you. You can pull out new information for ChatGPT to log to like an audit database on what tickets are handled, how long they're handled for. And so there's really a lot of things you can build on top of this once you've got the basic structure of categorizing a problem and then seeing how you can handle it with one of the services. And that's actually the build that you're going to need for the quiz. And I'll just show you the quiz real quick, which will ask you to use that build with a fresh Excel file to run through in order the 4 emails here, and then give us an answer about the resulting state of the database. And so by deleting and updating emails, you should be able to look up which row has these dates and provide which row column, I guess, has the email address that has been adjusted in the last 4 questions. And so that's going to be the build. I'm happy to take any questions on that. And yeah, we're excited to release this module, like I said, only 20 minutes ago.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Mark, thanks for walking through that. I learned a lot. And And yeah, it's super interesting how you were talking about, like, this is just another piece of it, and you can continue piecing on so many different things. That's what I love about PixieBrix. It's literally the concept of these bricks that you piece together, and so there's very specific functions, and when you tie them all together, it's basically a full functioning app when you tie together a lot of these different actions. So that's super cool to see. As far as questions that came through, I did see one about OpenAI, specifically talking about is that when you're using OpenAI, are we exposing our data, or are we using a local LLM for data security? Todd responded to clarify that when you use the default OpenAI integration, it's using the enterprise API. Your data isn't used for training. And there's also a mask data brick that you can use to automatically redact common PII.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the general ways to handle it. If you can mask some of that data before sending it off, that's going to be obviously the best practice there. And then there are other strategies you could potentially use to maybe only send what you need. And so if you don't need to send the whole customer record and you just need to send the problem statement, or a specific data point, you can really reduce how much data you're exposing to the model there.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions from anyone? I'll continue monitoring the chat here. Yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to post them in there. And well, we should still have some time for more questions at the end here. But happy to pass over Micah if you've got a demo about some generative AI and automation anywhere, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, let's look at that. Let me share my screen here. Entire screen. All right.
Whole thing. Here we go.
You'll be able to see my developer environment, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that was a great demo and tutorial that I think Mark went through. I think it was really interesting to see how you have the flexibility of when you want to invoke an automation and when you want to take some other action, which could be making an API call to another application or something like that. A couple of things I wanted to clarify. One, when you're creating on the bot side, I just wanted to clarify that when you're creating a task bot and let's say just connecting to PixieBrix, the mapping of values that he showed from the output of ChatGPT into an automation, it's really simple to do. You're essentially just creating variables on your automation anywhere side. And I could say S input variable, name it whatever you want. But the important thing is you're just marking it as an input. When you're marking it as an input, then it's automatically going to show up as something that you have the ability to map data to. So when Mark showed that, they had marked 3 variables as input variables, and that's why there were 3 variables that were showing up there. So it's very simple to create that integration point by just marking those as input values. And you can even modify existing values if you want to make them input. So if they're not showing up and you want them to show up, you can do that. So I did want to clarify that because that is the easy way to create that integration and know that I can map data from what I'm doing in Copilot extensions or PixieBrix into Automation Anywhere. The demo that I wanted to show is trying to put some of that to realistic use. And this is another Copilot, RE, PixieBrix, whatever you want to call it, demo. And I think the big thing to call out here is, let's say that I'm a customer service agent and I'm working on different cases. A lot of times that means I'm switching between applications. A lot of times that may mean that some cases show up in one app and some cases show up in another. And a big key to my productivity as a case manager or a customer support agent is if I don't have to do so much context switching, it really helps me to focus on the task at hand and getting stuff done. And if I do have to do a lot of context switching and swapping between apps, that can be really expensive for me mentally and time-wise. And so there was a really interesting Harvard Business Review study about how much time people spend just reorienting themselves after they've swapped applications. And
context switching, right, Micah? That's the term for it, right? Context switching.
Context switching. So
yeah,
it ended up being like 15% of their total time is just spent reorienting themselves into a new application and doing that context switching. So that's why solutions like this are really important. Now, when I'm building an integration with Automation Anywhere and an app like Salesforce, for example, there's a couple different ways that I can approach it. One is through this extensions capability of Copilot or PixieBrix, where I can create these kind of integrations like Mark was showing, custom buttons, things like that. Another is you have the ability to actually embed Copilot into these applications, specifically into an iframe. The other is Salesforce's App Exchange actually has a Salesforce Automation Anywhere app, and I can create those integration points that way. So there's a couple different ways for me to tackle it. I think what drives that decision making is the type of experience I want to create for a user. So the very first thing I want to show here is I'm going to create something that the user doesn't necessarily know is an integration point, but it's very subtle. So I am not Mark, and I like to have these on a floating window. So when I show you how to set this up, I will be doing it through floating window style. And what I want to do is actually create a button here so that my case manager has the ability to import cases into their Salesforce environment. And the situation here is we're suggesting that there's a couple different ways that cases can be opened. And like many organizations, it may not always be a super smooth process of like, oh, they all go to this one app. I worked for a large financial institution, and the day I joined, they said, yeah, don't worry about that case management application. We're retiring it. 8 years later, it was still there, and they had added like 4 other case management applications. So the problem is real in that there are cases and that there are components of data in tons of different applications. And the better that we can bring some of those experiences together, I think the easier it is for our users. So I'm going to do something similar to what Mark did, but I'm going to start with a button. And I geek out about these buttons because I think it does such a great job of being able to match the styling. You know, the mouse over looks good. If I didn't know any better, I would think that that's a built-in capability of the platform. And that's why I really like creating these custom buttons, because I can publish this for a user and all they're going to know is that there's this new button that shows up. They don't have to have Automation Anywhere installed locally. They don't really even have to know anything about Automation Anywhere. If I publish this capability, all they know is that there's a new button that shows up that enables them to do something that makes their job easier. And that's what we really want to focus on. So I'm going to call this the import case as the name. And then for my button text, I'm going to call this import case. And again, you'll see it's updating immediately. So I really like the visual aspect of this. The other thing that I'm always setting on these is I don't want this import case button to show up everywhere in my Salesforce environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set that as a site filter here to only show up on the case page. I don't want this to show up if I'm looking at contacts or reports or something else. I'm going to set this so it only shows up on the case page. Otherwise, I end up with these weird buttons showing up everywhere where they may not be totally appropriate. That's all I'm going to set for this particular button. You do have some advanced options as far as like, do I want it to show up at the start or the end, which I think are really cool. You can do some custom CSS kind of stuff if you want to change the way that it looks. But I like it being like in the style of the built-in application. From there, what I want to do is I want to show a modal to a user. And this is going to enable the user to essentially insert some data from a legacy case, right? So what we'll do here is I'll give this a title. I'm going to call this import case. I can give a description if I want to. I don't really need to do that, so I'm not going to worry about it. Now, for the field, I'm only going to capture one field, and I'm going to capture a case ID. And I will give that name here. This will be what we use as the variable later on. So it is really important to make sure that you remember what that is. For my label, I'm going to call this, let's call it legacy system case ID. Everything is a legacy system unless it's the newest system. And that's the way that a lot of organizations work. So keep that in mind. And we'll just say enter case ID to import. Again, I have some extra data that I can set here as far as where I want the modal to show up and any kind of submit language, things like that. I'm cool with the default, so I'm going to leave it. The next thing we're going to do is actually trigger an automation anywhere bot. And so I'm going to show that. Like Mark, I have a couple control rooms that I have set up. And so I have the ability to choose which one. I do have an admin integration here. I will select the public workspace, and then I'll choose my automation. Now, my list of automations does populate. I know what mine is called, and it's called import case. So I can go and select that. I can show you this automation afterwards, but essentially it just has a single input value, which is that case ID. So it's expecting the case ID. It's going to go fetch that case from another application and then import that case into my Salesforce environment. This is not an intended automation, so I can leave that one blank. For my user, I'm going to select my bot runner and then device pool. I can actually leave this empty because my runs user account has the default device. I don't need to select a device pool here. And then finally, I am going to await the result. For my input argument, again, I have one value that was marked as an input variable there. So I know it's going to come from my form. So it's going to be at form.caseID. And that should be the mapping from this form. So there's the title of the form. This is my case ID. And then I'm mapping that as an input to my automation. Now, Mark didn't do this, but I'm fancy. So I always like to end mine with a little bit of confetti because I think this is the weirdest thing and also really funny every time it runs. So I add confetti to mine, and let's close. We can just minimize this. Let's try to run it. So when I hit import case, it will show me a modal. It's just asking me for a case ID. I'm just going to enter 7890 and hit submit. At this point on my unattended runner, it's going to essentially run that automation. It's going to fetch the case that's associated with that case ID, and it's going to import that into my Salesforce system. Now, the nice thing about this is I can actually switch windows. I could go do something else, and I don't have to sit here and wait for this thing. Now, it did come back and say that it successfully ran with my super fancy confetti. So if I refresh my case list here, I should see that a new case was added. And the time's off, I think just because of the time of my virtual machine versus the Salesforce environment. But it did import this case, and it's related to an air intake question that we got from a customer. So we can see that all of the case details have automatically been entered for like what account it's from, who the person was, the priority, how we got this one. It came from phone. We can see the legacy case ID here, and we see the full text of that case. So again, I didn't have to swap around to a bunch of systems. I didn't have to key data from one application to another, which again is a common problem for a lot of organizations. We ask humans to be the glue between these disparate systems. So this is a great way to kind of remove them from that kind of responsibility, make sure that we get accurate data mapped from one application to another. So I think that's a really cool way to show that, you can add these custom experiences. Notice that my import case button isn't showing up here, so I don't have to worry about that. It was only showing on that cases view. The last thing that I'll show you here is similar to what Mark did, right? If I right click on this, I can do a Gen AI case resolution. And in this case, I have pre-created an automation that is going to try to automatically suggest a resolution to this particular case. So it's going to take in the context of what is the case ID, what was the case description, who's the case owner, who's our contact, where did they come from, and it's going to automatically generate that response for me. Again, I don't have to necessarily stay on this particular window. If I wanted to come back later and see how this was addressed, I could do so. But what we'll see here is that it automatically refreshed for me because this case should be updated with a Gen AI provided resolution. And I don't have to send this to a customer directly, but notice that it's keeping in context of who the person is. It's keeping in context of what their question was and maybe some additional follow-up questions we could specify with them. And it's keeping in context of who I am as the case owner. And so this, again, enables me to have a head start in being able to reply to this customer with the context of all of the support tickets we've had before, maybe our relationship with this particular customer and questions that they've asked before, things like that. So this enables us to create a really robust response for that user, regardless of me having to do all of that manually. And I could obviously take this, I could tweak it, I could send that back to the customer, I could take it as is. We could easily have this automatically generated to skip that extra step of me having to right click and do it. But I think that's a cool way to show that, like, even within staying in this same application, I can, kind of invoke these interesting capabilities and add on to what my platforms are capable of. This is not specific to Salesforce. This kind of thing could work for any application. But I think that's an interesting way to help cut down on the application switching, help cut down on the swivel chair operations of a lot of organizations where I'm entering data from one platform into another just so I can have one complete system of record before I start doing the actual work, which is taking care of the case. Does that make sense?
Mark? That makes total sense. That is, sorry, I'm jumping in for Mark, but that's like extremely useful. And I'm all about using PixieBrix and automation tools to not have to open another tab and do something. So yeah, sorry, didn't mean to step out. Mark, what do you think? Oh, you're on mute, Mark. Somebody had
Mark,
to do it.
Come on.
Oh, man, that's a rookie mistake. No, I was going to jump in and just say that, Mike, I think what you said about what kind of interaction you want the user to have is like a really important topic in PixieBrix. It's, hey, can I make this a native looking button so that one of the end users might not even realize that this is some outside capability, but they're in their flow of work, they're in their application of choice and able to access systems that they don't really have to know about how it all works. They're able to just open the page and get going. And I think that's a great call out for why PixieBrix has a lot of interesting use cases, just keeping the agents in the flow that they're already really used to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I haven't seen any more questions come through, but last sort of call for questions. If anybody has, anything you want, you can also reach out to us and we'll be happy to connect you, answer your questions, and help you figure out how to use PixieBrix and Automation Anywhere for success. So yeah. And this is being recorded, so this will be available in perpetuity for, forever on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. So if you want to come back and you're working through this and you're like, wait, I don't remember this part, you can easily come back here and just watch this and click through to the parts you need. And we'd also love for you to come join the PixieBrix community. So I'll actually post a link to that in the chat. But it is a Slack community, and it's a great place to continue on the conversation and talk about anything and everything PixieBrix. So it's a great place to ask questions if you need help. It's a great place to meet other developers who are building automations just like you. And it's just also a great place to kind of show what you're working on. Like, I don't know about you all, but it's really fun when I build something. Like, I want to show everyone. Like, my poor partner, she gets the grunt of it. I'm like, look what I built today. And she's like, oh, this is cool. And she actually does think it's cool, but I think maybe she's just humoring me. So if you want some more friends to show off what you're building to, feel free to come and come join us.
And then definitely come see us. I think all of us are going to be at Imagine in Austin. So yes, if you're going to Imagine soon, definitely come up, and we'd love to chat some PixieBrix and Automation Anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Well then, yeah, on that note, Micah, do you want to explain anything else, or is there any closing remarks you have for how folks should reach out to you or anything like that if they've got questions or want to learn more?
No, I think we're good. I mean, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions or clarify anything here. Definitely excited for next week. We'll be at Imagine in Austin, Texas. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And Bot Games is going to be spectacular. We've also got some new product and training announcements coming out that I'm really excited for. So yeah, it's gonna be a great week, and I'm super excited to hang out with everyone and get to meet everyone who wants to participate in Bot Games.
Awesome. Awesome. Sweet. That sounds great. And thanks, Brian. See you in the chat here. We're glad you've joined us. You stuck all the way through this. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Micah, for taking time out of your day to join. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you all next time.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.